Welcome back to Small Business Stories. I am Mike Downhour from the Monroe Chamber, Quentin Durr from Origin Bank and Louisiana Catalyst, and with us, Ivan Hendricks from Candor Wealth Partners. Man, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
And it's a visual one, too, so you put on your Sunday best. That's good.
He dressed up
this
for
is my
today.
good side. I need to get over there.
There you go. There you go.
They didn't give me the option, so I'm sorry. Anybody
I
viewing
should have
this?
put a vest on.
That's right. That's right.
But we're color coordinating. So.
Yeah.
Well, man, talk to us. What is Candor Wealth Partners, and what are you enrolled in, or involved in with that program?
I think that the word candor, it's kind of trending back into place. A lot of people don't know what it means. It's not really an everyday use language word. It has surfaced in a couple of movies, but candor just means to turn the light on and show something for what it really is. And so it's basically when the burger on the menu looks like the burger you get on your plate.
Oh,
It is a transparency word.
Truth in advertising. Okay.
Yeah. And so my industry, so I work in, my business is people, and I look at their wealth and I help them make some sense of it and say, hey, does this wealth line up with what we want to do with our lives, or what we want this money to do with our lives? I have a different view of money. I don't think of it like a lot of people do. It's more of an energy source that's stored in a battery. And you can use different batteries for different things. And sometimes you want those to be high voltage, and sometimes you want them to be, low voltage. But what you put in that battery is the energy of your life, your work and the things that you did without, that you chose to store up for later or for someone else rather than for yourself. So I just help people manage that. Take the right amounts of risk for the right amounts of, put the right amounts of energy to the right things. Obviously, there's taxes. There's always an issue. I'm not a tax advisor, but I know a few of them, and we do some tax sheltered accounts and things like that. So basically, the idea is to get a good after-tax return that's consistent with your goals, and apply that to the parts of your life that it needs to be applied to. In our industry, there are lots of options, and I think the reason I started Candor was to apply those philosophies to people's wealth with more transparency than even is required in our industry. So,
and I'm sure they appreciate that.
I've never had anybody complain about transparency.
Well, I'll only speak for myself here, but as we get older, social media knows everything. They know our buying habits. They know what, every bit of that. Yeah. I keep getting served more and more saying, do you have enough money to retire? Yeah. Do you actually have enough? And click here to find out more, which I'm not going to click. But it does urge the question sometimes, how do I know when it's time to retire? Not asking for specifics, but how do I know?
Well, retirement is not a black and white thing. It's not just for everybody a switch that you throw.
Yeah, because I'll never go to a rocking chair. That'll never happen.
What are you going to do? I mean, sit in a chair and watch paint dry, or learn how to, knit or something. I mean, that's boring.
No, I'm still jumping out of airplanes. So that's,
but people have you are right. So people have different ideas about retirement. I have clients that want to just keep working in retirement. How do we do that? Well, you don't want to get your Social Security busted up. So we plan for that. And we say, okay, here's what you can do. Here's how much money you need to stay under the radar or whatnot. So there's rules about those things, but it's different for everybody. Retirement doesn't mean sitting around doing nothing.
I guess I have my parents' image of what retirement was. Right. Yeah. And it's you quit working, you go find a hobby or something and hope you have enough money.
Yeah. But the average lifespan is much longer than when your parents were retiring and looking ahead in life. In fact, the average retiree is expected to stay in retirement and hopefully survive through it in a good health for over 30 years. So when you're talking about a whole generation and a half of needing money from your resources, it's longer than it's ever been. Plus, healthcare costs have risen faster in the last 20 years than in the prior 20 years. Technology is great. We're all thankful that we have the benefits of good health technology and medicine, and the research is there. And hopefully there will be more to come. But it costs money. And
I guess you're going to dare advise me that buying lottery tickets is not a fair retirement
You can't
plan?
Put them in your IRA, so yeah. I guess there might be, somebody will figure out a way. They have these things called self-directed IRAs that you can somehow put real estate and hard assets into. So I don't do those things, but mine are more traditional. So.
All right, so take us through a typical, I call you up. Okay. Ivan, I've got XYZ. What do we do from here?
I do a plan.
Okay.
First thing I do is a plan. I don't do anything without putting some basic tenets down. And it's not just going through the motions either. It's not just we have to state a goal, so we're going to state a goal. We see that a lot in this industry, just because there's a minimum level of compliance. Must be this tall to ride, and a lot of people get by on that, and then charge you this level of fee. I don't do that. So we start with a plan, and we define your budget, your current income, your future income expectations, all that stuff. It's not that hard to do. It sounds hard, but technology is a wonderful thing. And in 30 minutes, I can have a really robust plan right out there in front of you, as long as I have some basic information, like what your Social Security is showing up on SSA.gov. If anybody's never gone on SSA.gov, you got to go. You got to do it. They don't send you the little green statements anymore until you're like 60. And so you need to do that now and kind of know where you're headed. Know what, Social Security probably will be there for younger people. Very minor tweaks will keep it in force. And so it's probably not going to go away. We just have to get it to the point where it's important to our legislators to make those changes. So once it's important to them, it'll be important to them. I guess that's how to say it.
Yeah.
Anyway, not knocking anybody there, but get your Social Security information off of SSA.gov. It's a slide tool. To me, it's interesting. But once I get all those things, I put them into the system, and then we got to understand your basic income needs and what they are today, and then we talk about what you're going to be doing, how many airplanes you want to jump out of per month, et cetera, et cetera. Set those goals, look at the expenses. Within an hour, certainly within one meeting, we can have all that lined out. Then we start to see if there's a deficit in your planning to your results. So this isn't rocket science. And then you just apply.
Where do you get more batteries?
Yeah.
How do we get more energy in the batteries? Right. What a lot of people think, and this is where people go wrong, is they say, well, I can't ever get that. At my age, I'm supposed to be saving, big number here, and I don't have it. And so to them, I say, yeah, but you got this number. And what you do, there's a lot more power. It's kind of like the tortoise and the hare story, Aesop fable stuff.
Yeah.
But the idea is you start with something and you lift a little, and then you lift a little more, and then you lift a little more. So if you're, say, applying this to yourself today, and you don't want to do anything other than just make one difference in your 401k or whatnot, you could say, well, I can't defer a lot. I can get my company's match, whatever that is, 3, 4, 5%. But it's not that really does the trick. It's the incremental increasing of it. So most applications like 401k planning tools will allow you to automatically adjust upwards 0.5% a year, 1% a year, something like that. You won't miss it. And those automatic adjustments, you'll blink, and your kids are grown, and you're putting 15% in your retirement account. That's amazing, and you didn't even feel it because you applied it slowly. So little tricks like that, encouragements. Quentin was asking me earlier, or we were talking about, how our industry can be kind of rocky, and a lot of people perceive it that way because there is volatility in certain markets in a lot of times, but we're experiencing that right now. I mean, we're going to hopefully not too much more, but there might be more to come. But you stay long-term focused, and so it's kind of like having a financial kind of coach person in your life that says, hey, don't forget to look at the long term when all you want to do is look at the short term.
What would you, so I think my mindset goes like, okay, for a W-2 person who knows they have a steady income, that's easy. But what would your advice be to that small business owner that may not, because you don't really know how much you make and you're trying to figure out, like, what would be that advice to, what is that starting number? Is it a percentage of revenue or just something, a comfortable
really
number?
Not. And small business owners need cash, and their business is a lot of their retirement. And so
the equity,
you kind of have to give yourself grace when you're a small business owner. I'm learning this. I was in the corporate world for, until I was 45, and then a year and a half ago, I went completely independent. Now I own my own thing. I mean, it's scary for
seen it on both sides.
Yeah. You go from thinking that I could be okay with this much in my account, but now I get scared if there's this much in my account.
Yeah.
Because there's, it's like you're flying a bigger jet or something, and a little mistake can go, so it's scary, and you need cash. So I don't get real. I'm just not very strict on business owners. Like I look at them and go, look, you're building equity in your company. Have that plan. I can't really tell them how to manage that side of things.
Right.
But there comes a day when they begin to produce a lot more income, and then they need things where they can suck more away and get more tax benefits and things like that. And I know some tricks there. So I guess to make sure I'm answering your question, though, the percentage that might be appropriate for a business owner, I mean, I guess you would just, looking at your AGI, you'd have to look at that with your CPA, with your tax advisor,
right,
and say, okay, what can I do? But it's a little hard to create rules of thumb
right,
when you're dealing with people who have a much more complicated. Like I have 2 LLCs, and it's like it gets very hard to understand, like what exactly is my net worth when I've got all this other stuff going on. But basically, it still comes down to income. I mean, it comes down to, what do you think your business might be worth? So we look at, EBITDA, we look at just revenue and how much you're growing every year, and we can sort of extrapolate a little bit,
right,
and say, well, okay, so you've got rental properties and you're paying them down this fast, so they'll be paid off by this time. Here's the income, and that becomes part of the picture, and we can insert that into the financial planning software. I use something called Right Capital. It's just a really cool, easy to use, very, very. They've thought of everything, and there's always somebody right there to help me when I'm crunching those numbers. So pretty much they've thought of everything. So you can kind of find that situation and plug it into the software. I don't try to reinvent the wheel, but right. I would say if you just didn't have, as a small business owner who's sort of starting out, if you didn't have anything going into savings at this point, again, that idea that something's better than nothing. Find what you can do and start flexing those small muscles, and they'll eventually become big muscles. A good starting place is 3%, and if you do that, and then a lot of times you can open up, a self-directed kind of in-house retirement plan that you kind of match yourself. It's kind of a tricking the system thing, but everybody's got them. You can look them up on irs.gov. They're simple IRAs typically. Lots of things you can do with those, and they give you a much higher amount that you can put in and match yourself from the company's money or from your money alone. So 3% is a good starting place, and then build from there.
Right.
But ultimately, for people to be prepared for retirement, they need to start young. Okay, time is your best friend.
That's where it's hard to get
through. Mike, what's
to
wrong
those
with you?
young people?
No,
they just won't do it. I don't need insurance. I don't need to. Yes, you do.
Or they say, I can do that tomorrow. That's the biggest.
And tomorrow
problem.
comes quickly.
Oh, tomorrow's already here. I mean, it's like, so time is your best friend, or it's your worst enemy. And all the investment returns and all the things you strive for are almost negligible when you're dealing with a 30 or 40 year window of saving up. But when you're dealing with a 10 or a 15 year window of saving up, it becomes a giant wall. It's almost impossible. It's very, very daunting. And so unless you're planning on, flipping a switch and being a plastic surgeon and you're 48, I wouldn't recommend waiting. I would go ahead and do something now for
You talk about tomorrow. We've got a friend in Australia, and when we talk, it's how is tomorrow, because it is already tomorrow.
That's funny, Mike.
Tomorrow happened, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're going to make it here. We're talking about small business stories, and you have a small business right over on Tower Drive, but we don't know a whole lot about the backstory, about who Ivan is, and
thank you. Yeah.
Are you around? Are you from this area? Did you transplant into this area? Talk about it.
I was like Moses. I came down the river.
Okay.
I started out in northwest Arkansas, was born there, and very quickly ended up in the central Delta region. Most of my years grew up in Camden, spent a few minutes in Pine Bluff where my grandparents lived at the time.
I did a few minutes in Pine Bluff.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I don't want to go back to Pine
I think
Bluff. Thank you, though. Sorry, Pine Bluff.
It was just my second grade
year.
And I made some friends there. Some of them are still there. But anyway, I do have some most of my family is all kind of dispersed from Arkansas. When I came up, I was like, I was one of these independent types. I was like, let me get out of here. Didn't want to go back home. Didn't leave anything there that I missed. My mom and dad kind of moved to a different area of the state. So I just didn't go back. I went to Washita Baptist University, which was a lot of fun. I met my wife, Margie. She wasn't my wife at the time, but eventually.
She is now.
Yeah. We got married in college over the summer. It was fun because all of our friends came back and were like, what just happened?
You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. It was a cool story. I'll tell you later. But so that was on the Washita River. We ended up
from Washita Baptist down to Washita River to Washita Parish.
To Washita Parish. And Camden, where I grew up, was in Washita County on the Washita River. So I've spent a lot of time dealing with these crazy Washita River people.
And trying to pronounce them.
Yeah, it's funny, tricking people. But, when they spell it wrong or say it wrong, we have a lot of fun with that. But the fact is, growing up, we were, and by the way, this is true of a lot of people who are in my profession, very poor. And so you don't want your kids to be poor. So you think of things that you can do to create wealth. Well, Hollywood portrays stockbrokers and things like that. You don't know what they do, but you think you want what they have. You see the cars they drive and you hear, oh, so-and-so's a stockbroker. And oh, that's fancy. And I want to do that. And my granddad, he was into stocks. He bought Walmart early.
Ooh.
Yeah, he did really well. And I don't know, I guess I don't know where it went because I never saw any of it. But he did well with it. And he would always tell me about it. He was like, yeah, my Walmart's doing this. And I didn't understand stock, but I wanted to understand it. I had all these aspirations. Like I could have gone into any field. Like I was good in physics. I was good in science. I was good in math. I could do pretty much go wherever I want. And it was the hardest thing for me. I was into music and I could have, I was literally flipping a coin in my dorm room, trying to figure out what to do with my life. But it kept coming back to that, that desire to provide, that desire to create some wealth in our family. Well, it turns out being an advisor or a financial manager of people's money is kind of a servant job. It's not exactly what it used to be or what it appeared to be in the movies. It's more of a, I'm in here, tidying up after people and giving, and people do, look up to me in a way, but I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm, begging for crumbs at the end of the day. Hey, can I get your account and help you with it? And so it's very much a humbling job, and never really thought of it that way. But growing up, I wanted to be a provider. My granddad had a big part of that. He would tell me about stocks, and he got me fascinated. And when I was in college and I needed to make a decision and sit down and build a career, I chose this. I was a finance major at Washita, and their program has just exploded. It's really awesome. Under the professor that taught me, or a couple of them, Dr. Rice, Dr. Airy, Dr. Philpott. He's moved somewhere else, but these were guys that were there a long time, mentors, and helped me get my first bank job and helped me learn everything. So it was about a 2-year period. After we got married, we were living off campus in a nice little apartment, and we were on our own. Margie's dad passed away right after that, so we ended up. I was at a bank working there in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, where Washita is, finishing up the degree, working on the master's, and at the end, some changes were made at the bank. Well, the people who hired me were losing their jobs, and I was like, I don't think I like this. I was just a newbie in middle management doing internets. They called me Internet Ivan at this bank. They were like, because I was the guy they called when they couldn't get into their website, and I was basically, master of none. I just did everything they told me, and so I left. I quit, and I went to work at Sherwin-Williams Paints. And because I had a firm offer, a baby on the way, I was working on my master's. They were willing to help me pay for that. And so took a job for Sherwin-Williams, which brought me to Bastrop, Louisiana.
Ooh, from Pine Bluff to Bastrop.
No, I didn't go from Pine Bluff to Bastrop.
Okay, just checking here.
I went from Arkadelphia to Bastrop.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Pine Bluff was just a bad dream. It was, but it,
Arkansas is the only state mentioned in the Bible, though, right?
Tell me about it.
Noah looked out of the ark and saw. Okay, never mind.
Thank you for the.
Thank
you can always count on.
Hang around Roy Heather when that happens. Okay,
good
sorry.
bad jokes. Yeah, you can't blame him. It's all in you. But anyway, so ended up in Bastrop. This is turning into a longer story than I meant to be. Made some really good friends in Bastrop, managing this little paint store there, and it was just we had a baby already there, and then a baby on the way, and so we were just kind of living very, paycheck to paycheck, trying our best. I learned pretty quick that I was never going to make more than I was making there. And I started this plan to build my own company. Well, because I'd been there 4 years and I had all this, ideas about paint and flooring, and I was getting really good at dealing with those contracting type people and making good relationships there. I thought, I'm going to open up my own hardware and paint and flooring store somewhere along 165. And that was in 2006. Okay. Well, you realize what would have happened to me if I'd done that. It would have been horrible. But God had a better plan. In fact, I think He put it in my mind to say, stop focusing on where you are. Focus on where you want to be. Don't just look in the moment. Look where you originally were purposed to go. And so I had this aha moment at some point when I was making business plans and trying to get an SBA loan and seeing if I could afford this. And that was to go into investment. So I had a friend who we bumped into each other at little parties for our toddler kids, and he was telling me, hey, I can get you in to talk to somebody here. And so we did. And long and short, I left Sherwin-Williams and opened up my own investment office for another company. And that was about 5 years from 2000. I started with them in October of 2006, and a lot of it was training and licensing. Didn't really get licensed to do business until 2007. 2007.
And all things.
Recession time.
Yeah. But if you fast forward through 2007, most of it was good.
Yeah.
In fact,
it wasn't until I guess
08, 09.
Late 07. I started at the bank in 07.
You were there? Okay.
Yeah. And Prime was I remember Prime like 7.
Yeah.
And then
where's Prime now, by the way?
8.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something that a lot of people don't realize, and you need to read these little tea leaves. The last time the 10-year Treasury bumped 5% was in 2007. I think it was July 2007. And Prime was up. And if you go back and read those articles of, all the smart people were writing, including, I was a student of it. I was, you can know a lot about something and know nothing at all. Like you can know how to mechanic, but you've never run a mechanic shop.
Right. You don't know
so that's
why.
where I was.
That's where fantasy football came from.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I stay away from that stuff because it's addictive. But I was there. I was kind of in this moment of, I'd learned all about it, but now I'm learning the business of it. And that's a whole different thing. And I was being taught very well, but you can't control what you can't control. And here came the worst recession we've seen in the history of recession. They call it the Great Recession. Like the Great Financial Crisis is what the GFC has kind of got its own acronym now. And bank failures, didn't stop until I think 2015. They just kept going and going and going and going and going. And a lot of it was sort of massaged so it would be delayed. It was stimulated so it would be helped. It was kind of like COVID. They wanted to slow the spread. That's kind of what that was for our financial worlds back then. And it was very hard. I was working a night job at a fish restaurant to bring in cash for my family.
Wow.
As a licensed as a New York Stock Exchange licensed broker, could not make the bills.
Wow.
It was rough. I had people show up at my house at one point, take pictures of my car because I was behind on the payments. And it wasn't even big payments. They were like $120 a month.
Right.
And I was I was hurting so bad. God provided. And that little job I got put just enough cash and food on the table to keep us healthy and alive and going. It was embarrassing at times when clients would see me bussing tables.
Yeah.
But, now I can tell that story and go, I'm not coming at you with this high and mighty degree of ideas that I'm so much smarter than you. I come to people with a very humble attitude of, I've been there. I've had credit card debt.
Yes.
I've gone through those processes that you're going through right now, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. It helps people. So
fast forward to Candor Wealth Partners,
Candor Wealth Partners,
where you are now.
So I made another. Thank you.
And I also want to get you involved in the chamber here with the membership drive before it's over.
Love it. Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
there.
Okay. So to make a very fast story of it, I left that company because they were making abrupt changes to compensation and how they did business. What they taught me day one was not what they were actually participating in. And so let's just call it what it is. They weren't paying me. and I was doing all this work and meeting all their standards of quality, but they weren't giving me enough to make a living on. So I moved to another company that would, and learned a whole different side of the business on that company. Was there 11 years, from 2010 to 2022, very end of 10. That's why it's 11 years. And ended up saying, you know what, and by the way, the industry through that exact same period of 2007 through today has transformed so much because of a lot of things that had to be reconciled to keep people honest and to keep the banking and system afloat and keep everything connected and working. And it's worked, but you can see during that time, you can look back and see visually where, especially with the rates and the yield curve, where that has just sort of, and then in the last, say, 15 months, it's just shot right back up. So there's some things to be conscious of there, but it's kind of like we don't know what it means, but we know there's something there.
Right.
That's where we were in 07, by the way. So we don't know what it means, we know there's something there. I decided, I know it was with a lot of prayer, during COVID, it was like, hey, we're all working from home. We're doing the best we can. But at some point, it kind of gave me the view to step back and sort of like a sabbatical to say, wait a minute, this is really what I want. And with all those changes that had taken place, and with all the red tape that had been wrapped around my industry over the years, I said it's time to go independent. And independent doesn't mean there's no insurance, or I have to do all of the same the same safety stuff and the same to make sure my clients are their information is safe, their money is it's at risk in the market, but it's not going to be stolen or anything like that. So I have to do all the same things the big companies do, but as a small company, I decided to go with a certain affiliation with LPL because they're big and they have a lot of resources for us. In fact, they're the nation's largest provider of financial services to independent broker-dealers. So I allied with them, and that's been a good call. Their Candor Wealth Partners was a vision that came out of a lot of those COVID years of sitting there wondering and looking at my sort of self-reflecting and going, okay, is this what I wanted originally? Kind of like when I had that aha moment of,
right.
Don't open a paint store right before a housing market crash. Thank God I didn't.
Good call.
But a brokerage office during a financial crisis wasn't much different. So anyway.
Well, you talk about allies. You have allied yourself with the Monroe Chamber of Commerce. You participated in the membership drive. Just real briefly talk about your involvement and what you learned from all that.
Oh, that was fun. We just had a big old time, and the biggest thing I learned was that the Monroe Chamber has turned into something really cool. Yeah. I've always liked the Monroe Chamber, but now it's fun. And it's like, and everybody says that now. I mean, it's just a lot of real people like yourself and Roy and the whole team that you've got working around you, just doing life with each other and helping each other. You've been
it's
to my
okay
office.
To have fun doing
it's
it.
It's okay to have fun. I love to I don't dress like this much, so I like.
You told me it's going to be on camera.
Yeah,
I know. I dressed up a little bit. I like to wear jeans to work, and I like to do silly stuff. And so my girls can tell you. So the Monroe Chamber has been awesome because the timing was perfect. I think I have to admit something though. When I first got into opening up Candor, I was so busy, and a couple of times it occurred to me I need to talk to the chamber about a membership, and I kind of pushed it to the back of my mind because I was like,
it's one of those things you have to do, right?
It felt obligatory. And when I went, and then Jeremy Harrell called me up and said, hey, you want to do this fundraiser with us? And I was like, well, yeah, but I need to get my membership going anyway. So I threw mine in and got credit for it, on the membership drive.
Right.
Yeah. And then as I was reading through all the benefits that were being provided, I was like, I got really excited about it. So I dressed up like Elf and got all crazy because we were the green and gold team. So that's the only thing I had that was green and gold.
Well,
my elf costume.
Thank you for everything you've done for the chamber. It is always good. Talk to us. How can people get in touch with Ivan Hendricks? And, from website, social, all of that.
Right. So website is www.candorwealth.com. CANDOR wealth.com. And that's that's really, there's a form, there's a blog on there. You can read about kind of, if you're not sure, like, how does this guy view life, or if you want to read more about, some of the stuff that I've opined about on there. I put some personal stuff on there. Not too personal, just, but there's a lot of fun stuff on there, and a little video about how we got started and all that. It probably needs an it's only really been a year and a half. It probably needs an overhaul. CandorWealth.com. You can go to, we're Candor Wealth on Facebook. I guess you just type in Candor Wealth and it comes up. I don't know. I've never done it. We have I don't know that we have an Insta presence. I just know that it crosses over, but I don't think we do anything on Insta. You can email me at ivan@candorwealth.com, or Melanie Darden. I hate to haven't mentioned her.
Yeah, Melanie is worth
She's
mentioning.
Pretty amazing. I got really, really, really just blessed beyond what I can even express. When she retired, after I left, she had no idea. She retired like 3 months later and called me up and said, "I'm bored." So I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I hired her. So she's my right arm, and usually my left arm too, in a lot of things. So Melanie@CandorWealth.com, MELONY at Candor Wealth. And so she's always there. You can call us at 318-582-2590. We're always there. We work, 8 days a week sometimes.
And you enjoy it.
So we don't work that much, but yeah, we do enjoy it, and we will call you back. So,
all right. Well, we thank you for your small business story, and very nice learning more about that Ivan Hendricks guy.
He's okay.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Thank you for letting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Small Business Stories. We appreciate you tuning in with the Monroe Chamber and Louisiana Catalyst, and we'll be back soon.